This particular election mattered not just for Hungary, but also for the United States in the context of Donald Trump's world view and his vision of himself. Many Trump watchers would say that Orban was actually who he kind of modeled himself after, in as much as it's clear that he is enamored with Putin. He thinks Putin is a strong guy, smart guy. Orban, arguably, is the kind of political, um, uh, his kind of political twin, I guess. So, all right, what just happened? Let's just kind of break it down. So, Viktor Orban, who has been in power for the last 16 years, was one of Europe's longest serving nationalist leaders. Um, and he just conceded defeat to Peter Magyar. I hope I said his last name correct. Who emerged as the face of a broad opposition to Orban, and that is who won the election. He is described as center right, where Orban was definitely more positioned as. The world labeled him a dictator. His actions said he was a dictator. So a dictator's gonna dictator, you know. So it's going to be interesting to see how Mr. Magyar uh, governs differently from Orban. But here are some of the things that are this is kind of like the big picture here. So one of the global community's gripes against Orban was this kind of this same thing that Trump is doing to kind of bastardize our democracy, right? Is to kind of turn it into this illiberal democratic model, which first and foremost, you want to weaken the courts. You weaken the courts. How did Trump weaken the courts? He put all judges on the court that he thought would be favorable towards him. So you want to weaken the courts, you want to weaken the media, right? You want to centralize executive power, and Trump pretty much did that from day one. And you frame nationalism and Christianity as political identity. Okay. And in our democratic system, separation of church and state, in this administration, they definitely do not respect those boundaries. They work overtime to blur those boundaries, but these are the symbols of chipping away at a liberal democracy, making it an illiberal democracy by centralizing power with the decision maker, stripping power away from co-equal branches. So that's kind of the larger snapshot of why this particular election is important for the people, for the Hungarian people. They want to live in a democracy, right? Okay, so what does this mean for global right wingism, right? Because we tend to talk about it a lot in the context of the United States. How does the relationship between Hungary and Ukraine change the results of this election? Of which election? Who just asked it? Sammy, how does the relationship between Hungary and Ukraine changes with the results of this? Oh, how does Hungary's relationship with Ukraine change at the result? I see. I actually don't have an answer for you yet. I don't know. But as soon as I do know, I will come back and update everyone. But one of the reasons why I'm here is to kind of give you a quick down and dirty. This isn't a long, exhaustive security brief. I just figured I still had on a little lipstick in my clothes, and the election was just called. And so I said, okay, let me go and talk to my community about what's happening. So, what's interesting about this is, will this race disrupt the kind of nexus of right wing global leaders, right? Um, Orban was a key ideological he was a key ideological ally to right-wing movements in Europe and the United States, closely aligned to Donald Trump. We already know that, a symbol of how to win elections while weakening democracy. That's what people like Trump admired in Orban, right? That he knew how to win elections while simultaneously weakening democracy. That has been Trump's one-two punch, right? Say that, he's still operating within the parameters of a democracy, but clearly clearly is doing everything in his power to weaken said democracy, and one of those ways is by um, taking voting power away from the people, gerrymandering, all the tricks, the Save Act, all the tricks. Okay, so what else do I want to talk about? Now that Urban is gone, one of the things that people will be keeping an eye on is, will Hungary realign with the EU? Will Hungary reestablish that relationship in a way that leans more towards European unity? Because we are in a unique moment. Now, what does it say? Now, what does it mean when Peter Magyar is talked about being a conservative, but a centrist conservative? I don't know if we could think about it the same way that we think about it here, um, because from what I understand, and I don't want to get this wrong, Magyar is not necessarily from the outside. He's actually from within Orban's um, orbit, essentially. So, what will that look like? I think there's still so many unanswered questions, and I think that's why I'm having a hard time trying to figure out what it could look like. But I can tell you what people are hoping for. They're hoping for an anti-corruption agenda, right? They're hoping for institutional reforms with the courts and the media, and a recalibration towards the EU. I would say those three things are what people are really hoping that comes out of this election, is for Hungary to get closer to the EU, a return of institutional uh, everything, actually. uh, because everything was centralized and pretty much controlled from the state. But the anti-corruption agenda, and we are going to be saying something very similar very soon, because corruption is running rampant in this current Trump administration. It is out of control, and it literally helps. We literally see it every day in front of our faces. Okay, so I'm trying to think. People are probably wondering if this has any impact on the Middle East, and I want to be very careful about what I say. This, again, I'm going to go back to the EU thing, right? Like, it's more about how Hungary is going to position itself in its relationship with the EU, which can determine their role that they're going to play in terms of whatever is going to happen long term in the Middle East. And yes, today, last night, um, I got a few text messages waking me up, saying that, JD Vance returned without a deal. And then the news that came out that that the United States is going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz, of which I don't know what international authority the United States has to do that. But, in a time of Trump, as I always say, laws are just a suggestion. Um, so let's see. I'm thinking about this question in terms of Hungary's partnerships. And the fact that Orban had a warm relationship with Putin, I wouldn't necessarily call them besties. Maybe a Hungary less aligned with Moscow and more aligned with the EU could be very good for Ukraine. To answer the earlier question, yes, JD Vance, he wrote a 3. Pope Hungary and Iran, yes. Let's see, what are some other things that I'm, yeah, there's still some unknowns, but the fact that Orban did concede, that lets me know that, even if it is performative, he is still performing within the bounds of democracy, right? So he did call and he did concede, and we'll see what that's going to look like, going further. I mean, it was very clear that the Hungarian people wanted change. I mean, the lines were wrapped around a corner. I don't know if you all saw the videos, but as more people are waking up to the realization that foreign policy, domestic policy, national security, that all of these things intersect, right? Without all the things that we are experiencing as a country, without Trump 2.0, I don't think as many people will be keyed into what's happening around the world, because y'all are realizing that what happens in other places matters for us here, right? So what does it mean with Orban gone? I have posted on Threads, there's going to be a lot of ketchup flying around the White House tonight, because I'm sure Trump is not happy about that. He sent Vance to go basically and stump for him, and it didn't work, right? So whatever whatever delusions of grandeur that Trump had about a third term, I mean, that was already a non-starter anyway, but even more so, no, that's not going to happen. Now, if I were Trump, would I be worried, even more worried, for the midterms when Dems get back in power? Absolutely. 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 So stay tuned. Everything is fresh and new. It's just happening. I will keep you all updated what's going on in Hungary and everywhere else around the world. Because like I told y'all on Friday with the top 5 that I'm keeping my eye on, we are still not out of the water with this situation with Cuba and Ecuador, right? So those are still ongoing situations. Um, and also, Iran is just is going to be an ongoing situation. So keep it locked here, y'all. Thank you for tuning in today. This has been a working Sunday, y'all. Like, your girl is tired. Like, I need to go take a nap or just watch something and then just zone out for a little bit, because tomorrow I gotta, get my week ready to teach my wonderful students, so unless y'all just have some burning questions in the comments, I'm about to tap out, y'all. So why y'all got me? Ask me these questions. Ask me these questions, because I am about to tap all the way out. I'm about to put my robe on, honey, and just curl up in the bed, watch something, or take a nap happily. Because next week is gonna be crazy. White House correspondence stuff. It's all types of stuff going on next week. So, all right, y'all. It doesn't seem like y'all have a question to ask me, so I'ma go. And I will check in with you all next week for Dr. Nola's top 5. All right, y'all.